Hey y'all. So today I want to talk briefly about rhetorical analysis and modality. Um, so this weekend we have an assignment due. The end of week 2, you have blog entry number 1 due, and we'll talk about that in a separate video. But for that, we need to use this concept of rhetorical analysis. Now, you guys have already done some readings on this, or at least you should have. For week 1, we have LL chapter 1, WD chapter 1 and 2, and LL 3 and 4 this week. And all of those need to be used in writing your blog entry. So now if we look at rhetoric, remember that the term rhetoric has a lot of definitions, but essentially it means either persuasion or appealing to an audience is usually the go-to definitions that I look at. This PowerPoint is available on Moodle, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But it's important to know that when you're creating a text, that there's a lot of different concepts that interact with that text. And when we use the term text, we are speaking of any sort of message. So I will sometimes use the word text when I'm talking about a video or clothing. All right. So it can be, it's not just a document. And so when we have a certain text, there's going to be a lot of different ways that we have to look at it. If we want to create some technical instructions for someone, you know those machines that you use to pay your cell phone bill? We don't have those in America. And so when you come here as a new international person, I have to know how to use this machine. And so when you're looking at a text, something that's trying to convey some information, let's say instructions on how to use this machine, you want to make sure you think about your audience. Who's going to be reading this? If it's American foreigners, then it should be in English, right? Why? Where are they going to be reading it? What mode? So modality, this thing that we're talking about here. What mode will be the best mode? So if I make a video about how to pay my cell phone bill, and I post it to YouTube, is that the best mode? Well, maybe, but if they haven't paid their cell phone bill yet, then they might not be able to go to YouTube. And so maybe even though a video is a good mode, like we all like video, how would I watch it, right? So maybe the instructions would be better as a sticker on the machine itself, or a PDF, or a poster next to the machine, right? And so the modality is important when you think about when people will be using it, where people will be using it, how people will be using it, why people will be using it. And so these are all the different things that you want to think about when you're looking at a text and the rhetorical situation. Again, hopefully you've done your reading, but there's a lot of different concepts of the rhetorical situation: the author, the text, the context, the reader. All of these things will inform how we perceive the message and how the message is created, okay? So I'll let you go through these and look at these. Let's look at this loan example here. And so another great example here would be if you want to get a loan. So our exigence is that we need $500, and we need it. There's a time constraint. Exigence essentially connects to time. There's a time constraint, right? If we're giving a speech on global warming, the exigence is that the world is going to end, if we don't fix this issue. And so our exigence is maybe we need to pay our bills, and so we need this $500, okay? The author, okay, will be the author of our argument. The text is going to be our case, our argument for getting a loan. And the audience will be whoever we get the loan from. And so if we decide to go through a bank, then we're going to have various constraints. We're dealing with this bank, so we're going to have to go through all the formal processes. We're going to have to go through all the documentation. I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to convince a banker. I'm going to have to think about what I wear, the clothes I wear, and the way that I speak to this banker, right? All of this goes into this text, this document of trying to get a loan. And so it's another helpful example. And so rhetorical analysis, therefore, is looking at a text from all of the different perspectives and analyzing it rhetorically, thinking about how successful it is. Some things will be successful, some things won't. It's not necessarily about coming up with an end conclusion. It can be, but it's simply looking at all the different parts of a text to see how effective it is. You can look at it through ethos, pathos, and logos, and look at how effective a text is at conveying ethos and logos and pathos. Of course, not every text has to have ethos, right? Some of them don't, and that's okay. Some don't have logos, and that's okay. But you have to think about, why are things being created the way that they're creating? Why are the choices being made that are being made? And so rhetorical analysis is really connected to critical thought. It gives you the opportunity to think deeper about an argument, deeper about a text, and look at it a little bit more critically to see how effective is it, and what is it trying to do? Does it understand me as the reader, and what is it trying to convince me to do? Is it trying to get me to feel empathy? Because then maybe it's using pathos really well, right? Is it supposed to be conveying empathy, but it's not? Then it's maybe conveying ethos poorly. And there are other ways that we can break rules of rhetorical analysis. If we go back to exigence, and if we look at this idea of time sensitivity to a thing, if I give a speech on global warming, but global warming happens anyways and the world ends, well, then I failed, right? And so we can look at exigence in that way as well. Was there a scholarship that you were supposed to submit by Friday at midnight, but you didn't, right? And so you missed out on that. All right, so hopefully that helps you guys understand rhetorical analysis. I'll be making another video on how to submit our assignment this weekend. Make sure you do your readings for week 1 and week 2. You will have to use these readings when you compile your blog entry post. All right, and we're going to end the video here if I can. There it is. Stop recording.